Thank you for joining us today. My name is Zachary Allen.
And I am Michael Sherbanenko.
And this is the Call for Fire podcast, and we appreciate you joining us today. I hope that this sounds all right. We got some new microphones in here, and we're still trying to get them figured out a little bit as far as making sure that the audio sounds good. So if it doesn't sound good, too bad.
Yeah, too bad, so sad, but we're going to roll with this anyway.
We're off our meds today. We have no script. We got no devotional that we're talking about. We'd kind of chatted about this maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago, that when we got through the first 4, maybe taking a little bit of a break from going through a specific devotional and having more of a free-form conversation and maybe touching on some of the things that were more personal in life, but also kind of like maybe going back and talking about a few of the things and like the themes from the general podcast. So I hope that this is enjoyable.
We hope so. We don't want to be dull and boring, but there are a few ideas that are rolling around in my head that I'll share today.
So we're going to start by going through the periodic table, one element at a time.
Yeah, that'd be amazing.
So nitrogen.
Yeah.
Actually, I don't think nitrogen's one. I think it's hydrogen, right?
I think so.
Well, there's your science lesson for the day. This podcast is brought to you by hydrogen, number 1 on the list. Well, you said you had a few things rolling around in your head, and I know that, but in full disclosure, we don't necessarily just come down here and just talk. We do spend some time prepping. So we spent some time talking upstairs, and it's not just about what we're going to talk about, but it's also just catching up with each other and making sure that we're up to date on what's going on in each other's lives. So we had kind of talked about some stuff upstairs, but was there anything that you specifically wanted to jump into first? Because I know that we had kind of talked about that one thing up there. I didn't know if that's what you're going to kick it off with. And I say that one thing, which is extremely vague. We talked about 100 things up there.
So I'm going to talk about something that I didn't talk to Zach upstairs, but it just occurred to me that something that I waited like a really long time to do in my life. Probably, well, I'm 50, so it took me 50 years to do this.
It's a little bit of time.
Yeah. So I grew up, and my mom is like a very dominating person in my life. Mm-hmm. You know, my mom was the person that, was the first Christian in our family, very charismatic, very disciplined prayer. And, but also older, very opinionated about looks, and very conservative Republican, as you can imagine. And so I started hanging out with other people who had mom issues too. And what I realized is when I started hanging out with this person, his mom recently passed away. And he's like, I wish I would have put boundaries around my mom earlier, because that bled into the rest of my relationships. Mm-hmm. So I recently put boundaries on that. And when I told my wife what I did, she was like, well, good for you. It took you long enough, because sometimes I think like the things that we do in our life, like we don't understand like how other relationships affect your family and how they, can swing like those dynamics, Yeah. And I had to like put my mom in such a boundary where I need to talk in front of my wife to make sure that those conversations I'm having are very like the boundaries are there. It's a healthy conversation, because I think like just because my mom knew me growing up and has the best intentions for me now, like my mom was not there from when I went in the military. I went in the military when I was 24. So really, my mom wasn't there for me for the last 26 years, basically. My wife was.
Yeah.
Right? So my mom knew me as a child, but still is trying to guide my life as she knew me growing up. So our relationship hasn't really evolved, to where I am as the adult person. So when I have a conversation with my mom, she's like, oh, you should do this, you should do that. And then I would take that conversation and I'd be like, still trying to apply it to my life when that doesn't apply anymore.
Yeah.
Because I think we do that to ourselves. Like, we think that our families have the best interest in us, which I think that they do.
We would hope, at least.
Yeah. So, but the thing is, we've evolved. Like, I'm a dad, I'm a husband. Like, I've done all this other stuff that my family hasn't been a part of. And instead of having healthy relationships and not giving them access, I would just like open up my chest and like, this is what my life is now.
Yeah.
So that is something that I did recently. And I was just like, and I've let that like bleed into my marriage. I'm married for 21 years now. So I'm just like, why didn't I do that sooner?
Usually that's what happens with good decisions that we make. And it's always looking back, wondering why we didn't. But, the timing is the timing. It's what it is. But I kind of connect with that. It's still something that I'm struggling with. Not so much the mom part, but family in general. And like you were saying, I feel like my family has an opinion of who I am. People have an opinion of who I am based on the person they used to know. And nothing pisses me off more than when people in my family are like, "Oh, you like this, or you have this personality trait." And I'm like, "You're basing that off of someone you knew who was like a teenager, like a 14-year-old kid. You're not basing that off of who I am now."
Yeah.
We don't spend enough time together for you to really understand who I am. And I don't say that for you to be like, "You don't know me, bro."
Yeah.
You don't know me. I say that because that would be pretty unfair of me to make an assumption that my family is the same people that they were when I was that age.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, a lot of people are, though, because people who don't change typically assume that other people aren't changing.
Yeah, that's true.
And, like you were saying with your mom, and this isn't to poke at your mom in any way, but if your mom is the same person in a lot of her viewpoints that she was when you were a kid, and even when you were a young adult, and when you and Jenny got married, and still that same person now 25 years later, it'd be pretty safe to assume that she would think that most people act that way. Most people live that way.
That's true. So a while back, back a year, November, I shared in group before the group after Thanksgiving last year. Last year is when the haircut happened and I started doing the braids and like all this other stuff, the whole Viking look, all that.
Yeah.
And it was after Jenny got ordained, and my mom saw my hair standing behind Jenny on stage, and she read me the riot act. And all I was doing is I was calling her to say, "Hey, happy Thanksgiving." And then she was crying because of my hair.
Because of your image?
And the image that I was presenting. And her sentiment to me was, no one's ever going to take you serious. You can't be a leader with that hair, like all this stuff. And I'm just like, I was like, so you're saying like the content of my character doesn't matter? The way I hold myself doesn't matter? The fact that I'm a veteran doesn't matter? And I kept on like listening to all that stuff. And she's like, no. I was like, what would Jesus think of your hair right now? Is the way that it was presented to me. And I was like, I don't think that Jesus cares about my hair if I'm reaching the lost and they're identifying that I'm different than everybody else. The reason why I have this hair, because I want to separate myself from other people.
Yeah.
And I was just like, she's like, well, I think she said this to me. She's like, I think you need a TED cut. I'm like, I looked at her, I'm like, what the F is a TED cut?
What's a TED cut?
And I looked and it was like, the thing that kept on coming up was like that Senator Ted Cruz, where it's like his hair was like parted. It was like all neat. That's what was coming up on the images. Like, and I kept on thinking to myself, is like, I'm not this little boy anymore.
Yeah.
You know? And I was just like, why is this still happening? I don't get it. You know? And it wasn't until, I can't remember who it was, but I was sitting down with someone with I don't know, a veteran passed away. It was like a veteran's son. I think the mom was like saw the son's like face and was like, I don't know him. I remember him growing up. I remember him going into the military. But when he came back, I don't know him. You know, and I think sometimes, like the adult us, we are not comfortable, or our family isn't comfortable with the adult us if we've changed and our image is not like approving to them.
Yeah. Or if we step outside of the lines of their expectations of who we should be.
Yeah. And that even like goes with our faith. That goes with like, you know, the people that we choose to hang out with, like the music that we have, like the people that we are obviously have changed through all these experiences that we've had in life. And I don't think that I would change anything to where I am now, because that is what made me to be a person that I am now. Yeah. You know, and it's the same thing with you. You know, I think like, you know, this podcast, I'm not really sure how it's going to take off or anything, but let's say when we're done and we're on like podcast number 55 or something, and we're trying to determine whether it should keep going, if it's successful or not. And we're just like, it's come to that point where it's like, man, should we keep doing this? You know? Yeah. It's the same thing with us. Who we are as people. Who we are as people have made us stronger and resilient as a person. We've evolved. Obviously, what worked in kindergarten isn't working when you're an adult. Yeah. So, I don't know. It just pisses me off sometimes when I think of why I put my expectation on other people. And when I come out of the conversation, I was like, man, that was a really crappy conversation. Yeah. Why do I expect them to be there for me when they haven't been there for me for 25, 26 years? You know, don't get me wrong. I love them, but I am under the impression that they want what's best for me. Well, the thing is, they want what's best for me, but they want what's best most likely for the old me. The old me that went to elementary school, that went to junior high, that went to high school, that went to Bible college and got kicked out because he wanted a python in his dorm room. You know?
Yeah. I made a post on Instagram, and it was probably on my story about a year ago. And it started out with, not everybody has your best interests in mind. And that people will, you want to assume that, you want to have that idea in mind that somebody out there does have your best interest in mind, but it's like they have your best interest in mind as far as it serves them. And it's really, family is a weird thing because it's like, they are the people that will hurt you the most.
Mm-hmm.
They are the people that you will love the most for the most part. Some people, maybe not so, but like they're the people that you will get into arguments with the most. And we it's like we save our best us for strangers. And I know that this was kind of like when I was working at a company where I was on the phone all day. It's like I had to use all my best energy on the phone talking to clients all day. And then I just came home with rags for my wife. Mm-hmm. And that was a tough time in our marriage. And everyone got the best of me. And everyone on the outside had this opinion of who I was, but at home I was a completely different person. Mm-hmm. And what I quickly realized is not so much that I should treat everyone like shit and be nice to my wife, but like I needed to be more consistent with who I was in public and in private so that people didn't get a false idea of who I was. Mm-hmm. And it's something that I strive for, is being authentic and just being open and honest with people. And when someone asks me how my day is and it sucks, just tell them it sucks. And if I determine that this person doesn't deserve to occupy space in my life, then they're going to get a platitude. Just living the dream.
Yeah. You know, it's interesting when you say that, because I remember when my marriage really hit like the rocky spot, 2017. And my wife said this to me, I think before I went to Centerpoint. She says, "Why can't you treat us like everybody else? That's what we want." And the thing is I would paint the picture like I was like this person, just like you were saying. I was this person, and everybody wanted to like be around this person, whatever. And then I'd go home, and then I'd be, my family would get the scraps.
Yeah.
But then when I put my life back together, it was the opposite. Everybody got the scraps, and everybody's like, "Man, you're different." And one of the things that I realized is other people's opinion are really none of my business that are around me. They're none of my business. And that was one of those things that I had to put in practice, that the more you practice that you don't care what people think, and that doesn't change who you are as a person, the further that you're going to go, the further that you're going to do stuff that really is going to like galvanize your spirit as a person. Yeah. But, just like you're sitting there and you're like, I'm sure we'll get all these things. Either people like the podcast, or they're going to be like, "Man, your content is kind of BS this week. I really don't, I don't understand why you guys are doing this." and we could take like all that stuff, like all the people that even people that don't like the book. There are people that
write your own.
Yeah, the people that I'm not saying that don't like the book, but there are people that got me like, that I'm close to, that got me like no feedback at all.
Hey, you people who don't like the book.
Yeah, what's up with that?
Go F yourself.
No, but I'm just like, I'm like, no feedback. I was like, what's up with that?
Yeah. I don't know if I've said this before, but I put very little weight into any positive feedback that I get, because if I do that, then I have to, like, what am I going to do? Just ignore the negative? Mm-hmm. Like, no, I either have to ignore all of it or I have to take all of it. So when someone says like, "Hey, I listened to your last podcast episode, it was great." Mm-hmm. I'll be nice and I'll thank you. But like, if that's going to drive me to make the next podcast episode, then I'm doing it for the wrong reason in the first place.
That's true.
And if I'm doing all of this because of what other people think of me, meanwhile hating myself, man, that's a pretty miserable place to be, because I've been there. That's that struggle with mom. That's that struggle with family. It's like I'm living this life for anybody but me. And this is something that I tell my clients quite often is, do you not matter? Like they'll say stuff to me like, you know, I really want to lose weight, but my wife's not supportive, or she just doesn't want to eat that way, or my husband doesn't want to do this, or I have kids and this and that. And I always ask them, I go, does your happiness not matter? Does your joy not matter? Why is yours valued lower than theirs? Why are you selling your happiness, your peace, your joy to the lowest common bidder? Netflix, fast food, other people's opinions. It's like, you have to start valuing yourself. And this is something that you talk about it's been touched on in almost all 4 of the first 4 devotionals, but there has to be a sense of value to your life in order for you to actually step up and go like, I can love my mom and she can still be wrong about this and I can still love her. And that's okay. And I don't have to value her opinion in everything. I can still value my mom and not value her opinion.
Right.
And that's been something I've been really trying to work on with my parents, because I haven't severed the tie as long as you have. Like my tie to my parents, like they helped out with stuff as old as me being like 24, 25, like when Megan and I were trying to buy our first property, and they helped. My mom took a 0 commission fee as our real estate agent. So she gave up thousands and thousands of dollars, and they helped with some financial stuff for us, like to help us be able to buy that house. And like they helped us get where we are.
Right.
So there's like this kind of, did they grease the wheels for me to be like, well, now you owe me one.
Yeah.
But if you owe people things for the things that they do for you, or you're expected to act a certain way because of a relationship that you used to have or have with somebody, that's not fair.
Right.
That's not life.
Right.
Like, I can't expect you to do something for me the same way that I would do something for me. It doesn't mean that I think low of you or think little of you that you couldn't. It just means that why would I expect you to place the same value in something that I do? We're different people.
Yeah. Yeah.
Your mom values hair. She values appearance. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just not something that you agree with. Dude, my parents, they stopped commenting on stuff. At this point, I think they're just like, he's not on heroin. He's still married.
Yeah.
His kid's healthy. Let's stop bugging him.
Yeah. You know, my Sophie, you know, she wants to be the person that she wants to be, you know, and I forget what kind of nose ring it is. The one that they put like right here.
The septum.
So Sophie came at the beginning of, at the end of 8th grade. She says, "Hey, I want a septum." And I'm like, I said, "You get all A's and B's, you can get a septum." So I said, I don't care if you have green hair. I don't care if you have purple hair, red hair. I said, I don't care what you have. I said, you get all A's and B's, you can do it. So she came to me, report card, all A's and B's. And she said, "When are you making me the appointment?"
Heyo.
I was like, all right, go make your appointment. Guess what? She is now in 10th grade. She still has A's and B's,
Yeah.
So I think like how I am as a parent, because when you were growing up, you're like, I'll never do this as a parent, is what I'm sure that we said to ourselves. When I'm a parent, I'll be like this.
Yeah. I'm not going to let my kids use an iPad or watch TV.
Yeah.
They're just going to read the Bible all day.
Well, I made that mistake with both of my kids, because I came to the point where like, oh, they're just occupied. We'll give them the iPad.
Oh, I was just throwing that one out there because Megan and I, like, there's so many things that we were like, we're not going to let Teddy watch TV or this or that. And it's like,
now that you're a parent, you're just
bro
like,
loves Ice Age.
Yeah. But when now Eli is 3, Eli like we don't have him like watching TV. Only like when it's time for him to like settle down, we'll have him watch TV before he goes to bed. But anything else is like TV's not on, no iPad, no cell phone, nothing like that. You know, it's like he's into puzzles. Like he will sit there.
Nice.
He will sit there, and I think he's into like, I'll go to the dollar store and I'll get like 5 or 6 puzzles. He'll sit there at the kitchen table, like looking at all these puzzles, putting them together. I'm just like, yeah, dude, like the entire kitchen table will be like one big, like 8 or 9 puzzles put together. I'm just like, good for you, man.
Nice. Yeah, Teddy's not quite there yet. He's got the concentration of an earthworm.
Yeah, I think Eli has every single like puzzle like memorized, so he can put any puzzle together that he has in like 5 or 6 seconds. Is like, it's like, I'm done. It's like, okay, man, that's good.
Should we give him a Rubik's Cube?
Oh man, I don't know if he's ready for that.
I've got an extra. You can take it home with you. I've got a little 4x4 cube. He'd probably love that. It's real easy to solve. It's all corners. Yeah.
So the next thing I want to talk with Zach about, we talked about this actually upstairs, is I am horrible at like starting projects. I have like a chicken coop that I've been working on for like 2 months. That's like, Zach's like, oh, we can go there tomorrow and we can finish it. I was like, no, man. I was like,
this legit was a conversation. I offered to come to this man's house and work on his chicken coop tomorrow.
Yeah. And I was like, no, man, that's, whatever. And then I said, I have this other thing where I have like this, I have a corner of the garage where it's like, I need to organize all this stuff. And like, I have all these projects like not finished. That's like one of the biggest things that I have is, why do I start something and not finish it? And why do I get like complacent? Like, I think sometimes my life is like a slinky. When it's nice and tight, everything is together like it should be. And then when it's strung out, I get like complacent to like put it back together again.
Yeah.
It's like when you watch a slinky go down the stairs, it'll go all the way down the stairs. But then as soon as it gets down the stairs, it doesn't go anymore.
Yeah.
So, in the book at the beginning, there's a saying of like, your journey in life or your journey in healing. And really like this book was put together to help people like get better in boundaries and emotions and relationships and like all this stuff. And, one of those things that I don't understand sometimes is when you better yourself and you see like you're coming to a point like, okay, I can do this. Mm-hmm. I don't understand why you would stop going forward when you know like you're going to get better, I
think that's the kicker right there. I don't think a lot of people actually believe that they're going to get better. I don't think a lot of people can see that far ahead, myself included. You mentioned something earlier. We start this podcast, maybe we get 55 episodes in. Well, what if we have in 55 episodes, we only have one new watcher per episode. So at the end of 55 episodes, we only have 55 subscribers.
Mm-hmm.
And the first thing that came to my head is a guy named Alex Hermosi. And Alex Hermosi, very successful marketer, and now he's kind of like a speaker. He does a podcast. He does everything. He's worth hundreds of millions of dollars. And he's young. He's like only a couple years older than me. And I see stuff like that and I'm just like, man, that's incredible. But he started a podcast after making, 8-9 figures in the gym world, the gym industry. And for the first 4 years, he had like no listeners to his podcast, hardly any, 4 years. And then it blew up.
Yeah.
Like the social media platform changed, and he saw the changing tide and was able to put out clips and caught traction, and it blew up. And it's like that meme of where you see two people digging and they're both above a pot of gold, and one guy's turning around, walking away, and the other guy is just tearing into the ground still. Mm-hmm. And it's like, because to one person, they don't see that there's that pot of gold, and the other person believes that it's there, regardless of what the ground keeps giving him. They believe, or her.
Yeah.
And I think that that's the real kicker there is people genuinely don't believe that their situation's going to get any better, or that they're going to get it figured out, because life has kicked them in the nuts so many times. The proverbial nuts, it's not just men, but like that life is going to do that to them because it's always done it to them. And that's the narrative that they tell themselves. Mm-hmm. It happened to my dad and it happened to their dad, or maybe you're like me and your parents tried to prevent you from making certain decisions that were risky because they foresaw something. So you decided to go against what they said anyways, but in the back of your head that whole time was that lack of confidence because your parents had already spoken this thing over you that it wasn't going to be successful anyways.
Right.
That you were going to more than likely fail.
Right.
That people speak over themselves and everything.
Yeah.
I don't know so like, tell me this, let's talk this out. Let's talk this chicken coop thing out, because let me play Socrates for a few minutes.
Okay.
And I don't say that I am Socrates, but the Socratic method is this idea of just talking through things and asking questions and trying to really get to the issue of it. So when you think about working on the chicken coop, what's the first, when I say, hey, let's work on the chicken coop, what's the first thing that comes to your mind?
Oh, crap.
Oh, crap. Now, then, oh, crap is the middle of the spider web, and all those little webs come out of the middle. Mm-hmm. So what then does it jump to?
It really doesn't jump to anything. It's like, oh well, whatever.
So do you have the materials?
I can get the materials.
So you can get the materials.
Yep.
And what stops you from getting the materials?
Laziness. To be honest with you, I get entrenched. Like here's my day. Okay. So I will go home, or I wake up, I take Sophie to school, and then I work out for like 2 or 3 hours a day.
Yeah.
And then I go home, and then I drink like a smoothie, and then I'll sit there and my favorite TV show comes on that I already recorded.
The Price is Right.
No, it's I have this thing where this is a really bad habit that
You're
I
a
have.
Judge Judy man, aren't you?
No. So first of all, I'm going to back up why I watch this show. Okay. And I think I have every episode recorded. So when we lived in the park, I went hiking in the Quiver River State Park, and I was like in the middle of the park, like deep in the woods. I was in the middle of in the middle. I think I hiked already 13 or 14 miles, and out of nowhere, these 3 people walked up to me out of nowhere. And there was someone that came up to me. He was like, I think I'm in trouble. And he was followed by 2 people. And I was like, okay. I said, why don't you follow me and I'll take you to the ranger station. Just follow me. Everything's cool. And the 2 people following him said, no, we got him. He's good. And I looked at him. I said, are you good? I said, or do you want to make me have these 2 guys disappear? I said, I'm going to leave this up to you. I said, you come with me, you're safe. I said, I don't know who you're with. And the dude looks at me and he says, no, I think I'm good. I said, do you think you're good or you know you're good? And he says, no, I know I'm good. I said, okay. So I left. And the next morning, I have this really bad habit as I watch Facebook in the morning and I'll catch up with my friends or whatever. And this dude was missing.
The guy that you saw in the park.
Yeah, he was from Louisiana, Missouri, and he was missing. And I called the number and I said, hey, I met this guy in the middle of Quiver River State Park. I met him yesterday. This person that you have missing, he was missing for 7 days.
Wow.
And the police person said to me, it's like, well, did they jump off of Frenchman's Bluff? And I said, no, ma'am. I said, we were far from Frenchman's Bluff. We were like in the middle of the thing. And then they said, well, was he alone? I said, no, he was with 2 other people. And I described him and was like, huh. She said, huh, that's interesting. I said, well, I don't know if this is helpful. Here's my cell phone number. I said, I can take you exactly where they were. They're on the red trail in the Quiver River State Park. And she's like, okay, thank you. And I didn't hear from him again, the police again. And that kid was never found.
Wow.
So the TV show and some of the podcasts I'm addicted to are some of these people that have disappeared and were never found.
Yeah.
So I think in the back of my mind that I'm going to find some of these people. You know, I'll find them. I can figure out what the clues are.
Ranger Mike. Put Ranger Mike on it.
Yeah. You know, and I'm just like, I don't know why I think that in the back of my brain, but I do. And that is why I think that. You know, I was like, well, I let this kid down. Maybe I can find so-and-so. So I watched like Disappeared on ID, and I'm like looking at all these clues. I'm like looking on Facebook. I'm like looking at their website. I'm like trying to figure out like all this stuff. And it goes like nowhere for like 3.5, 4 hours. And then it's time to pick up Eli. So that's what happens to me. I get hijacked. My brain hijacks me and they don't get accomplished what I'm supposed to. Then Jenny comes home. She's like, I thought you were going to do at least the dishes today. I was like, yeah. I was like, something happened, you know, whatever.
Yeah. You know, I don't want to say I used to. I still have times where I do this, so it's not like I used to. It's less often than it used to be, but I would do this thing where it was like, so your chicken coop is me posting things on social media. I hate it. And unfortunately, it's really hard to run an online business without a social media presence.
Right.
So I used to like do things when I'd get home from dropping off Teddy. And I'd be like, all right, so I'm going to use the restroom. I'm going to make something to, you know, make a coffee. I'm going to play a little game on my phone and knock out like my little daily activities on there. And then I'll get to my work. Let me just like kind of build some momentum here.
Yeah.
And then I would go from there to like, oh, well, Megan would really like it if I made the bed. And then she'd probably like it if I vacuumed. And then she'd probably like it if I folded the laundry. And then maybe I should run to the grocery store and get some stuff. And it was like, I would come up with all these other things to do because I dreaded the idea of doing it because I felt that I couldn't do the social media thing because I wasn't getting any traction. I wasn't seeing any progress. And had I started to see progress, I probably would have been more active and posted more and done more things like that. I genuinely just hate social media, which is tough because more than likely, if you're listening to this podcast, you clicked on a social media post to find it. But like, it's that I'm busy, but I'm not getting anything done.
Right.
And a lot of it comes from this feeling of like, I'm incapable of completing this desired task. Like, not saying that that's what it is with you. That's psychoanalyzing it down to a different place there. But it's like trying to figure out the root is really what I'm trying to get to, is this idea of a lot of the time when we fail at things, it's much deeper than the surface level issue. What we see on the outside is an unfinished chicken coop.
Yep.
But why is it unfinished? Well, because I come home and I get on this this sidetrack of my show. Yeah, but why do you get sidetracked? Well, because I really like it and I think I'm going to find it because this guy who went lost in the forest. Okay, but why? Why then do you now feel this responsibility? And it's continuing to ask yourself this question of why until you break down all the little barriers, until you find that real reason of why, which is that you truthfully don't believe in your ability to complete said task, potentially. I lost a lot of weight a lot of times and was never able to see it all the way through because at a certain point I stopped believing in myself when I stopped seeing progress. And I felt incapable of completing the task that I wanted to complete. So it was easier to quit. It was easier to just go back to my lifestyle that I was living because at least that was comfortable.
Right.
And you have to like make a commitment to being constantly uncomfortable almost. And being okay with it sucking.
Yeah.
I mean, neither of us are Joe Rogan here.
Yeah. I think what's interesting about what you said is the distractions we create.
Yeah.
We create so many distractions from like when we start something to when we finish something. And I think that is, it's interesting because I have like a ton of like things that I need to do. Like, my tags on my truck are expired and I was supposed to do this. And Jenny was like, well, why didn't you do it? I was like, nah, it's the farm truck now. We don't really need it.
Yeah.
But if I'm going to drive the truck anywhere, I'm going to get a ticket because I don't have any, the tags are expired, and countless other things I should have done, but I don't know why I decided to become complacent because you have to put a label on why you're not accomplishing the things that you need to accomplish. And that goes with important things too, because when you are like improving yourself, there are like different phases that you have to go through. You have to like identify what you need to like overcome. And then you're in like the acute phase of, okay, I have to do this to get better. Mainly it's like addiction. Maybe it's like whatever it is. Then you come across like, it's like when we worked in the Dream Center, right? All those guys are going for freedom, right? And then we see them graduate and then we see, people who slip. And then we always ask ourselves, well, what did I not do or not say that made them slip?
Yeah.
But then when we look in our own lives and we're like, we came to the place where we're past the acute point, we're past this, and we're in the maintenance phase. Well, the maintenance phase is a lot harder than I think people understand. Like
it's the hardest part.
Yeah. How are you going to keep yourself good when like there's no motivation to be good? I mean, everybody else is watching you. Is he going to be good? Is he going to be good? And for a while that like catapults you to stay good. But when the expectation is off you, it's like, oh, he's good now. 9 times out of 10, that's when you drop it.
Yeah. Yeah. And especially with like personality change stuff or like lifestyle change stuff, this is a little Zachism for you. But if the habits that created the change are not sustainable, the results will not be maintainable. And I tell that to people all the time because you have to almost develop a system to work within. And like when it comes to addiction recovery, I think a lot of the time the reason why people can't stay sober is because the program is unsustainable. And it's unsustainable because there's so many distractions built into programs that occupy your space, that occupy your time. And then you're out in the real world and you're off work at 5 p.m. and you're just with yourself.
Mm-hmm. There's no accountability.
Yeah. It's just you.
Mm-hmm.
And when it's just you, and it's just you and your thoughts, and there's no, oh, we're going to the church to this meeting, or we're going to this, or we're going to that, and I don't have thing after thing after thing after regiment to do, you slip, you make mistakes. You have to be okay with just kind of staying busy for a while and keeping yourself occupied with things. Like the chicken coop thing is a different thing than a life change thing. The chicken coop thing, I think, is really that you don't want to do it. This is just me. If I were to put my little stamp on it, you don't really want to do the chicken coop, but you like the idea of having a chicken coop and having chickens. And if it was there, you'd probably keep up with it. You'd go out there, check on the chickens, get the eggs, make sure they have food and water. But it's like getting it from nothing to there that's your hurdle. And for other people, it's the taking care of the chickens every day.
Well, my thing why I'm not finishing it is because of what happened to the chickens.
And I heard about that. And that's also a different thing, too. We had
all these chickens, and we have these brutal raccoons, like brutal. I'm talking like, and raccoons are smart, bro. I don't understand it.
These Missouri raccoons are tough folks.
Yeah. And I would go out there and I would lock up the chicken coop every day with like the latches, and there's all this stuff, and they're in their coop. They're good to go. And I had this fortress around the freaking chicken coops that I made. It was like a dome of chicken wire. And I don't understand how they got in there to begin with. Right? Because the whole thing was enclosed.
Crafty little raccoons.
And then they got in there. Right? And then they figured out how to undo the latches. The whole undoing this and then pulling it open. They figured out how to do that.
Little trash pandas.
I'm like, what in the world? There's Rocky. And the look on my son's face of his chickens that were slaughtered, like chicken heads all over the place and like all this stuff. The look on his face, I'm like, dude, I can't do this again. And half the reason why it's not done is because I don't know if I can build it good enough to make sure that doesn't happen again. That's the biggest hurdle. The fear of failure to my son is the biggest one.
So the fear of failure, that's the why.
That's the why.
This is what I mean.
Eli loves taking care of chickens. That's why I want to.
Yeah. So we've now talked this out for 5 or 10 minutes, and we've gotten to the real why.
Yep.
And that's okay. You know, I might have had to poke a little bit. I might have had to make a guess that was wrong, and that's okay. We got to the real why. Yeah. And the real why is important to know in this situation, as well as any other situation, is that there is this previous experience that I've had, and I have this fear that this previous experience is going to be a reoccurring experience. I started to lose weight, and I got stuck in a plateau, and then I started to gain back all my weight. So I'm not going to try to lose weight anymore. I tried to get out of debt, and I paid off 2 of my credit cards, but then the brakes went out on my car and I had to go back into debt again. And so why am I going to waste time trying to get out of debt again? And you know, there's all these situations that we run into in life, and we'll consistently take a previous experience and rubber stamp that onto all future similar experiences. And what we really have to be willing to do is say, this happened before and it could happen again, but it could also not happen again.
Right.
My garden up there, my first 2 years failed for 2 completely different reasons. The first year it failed because it snowed like the last week of April after we had no frost for weeks. So I thought we were good.
Welcome to Missouri.
Yeah. Welcome to freaking Missouri. I should have known when I graduated college. I graduated on May 2nd in Springfield, Missouri, and it snowed. And I should have waited a little longer. I should have waited a little longer, because if they weren't planting corn, it probably wasn't time for me to plant tomatoes. But, you know, the idea is the first time it failed is because of snow. Mm-hmm. So I took that, and the next year I planted all my seeds in the basement and bought lights, and I got everything going in my basement, and I waited until about May to put them out, late May. And then beetles got to them and killed like everything. So then I had another thing. So then beetles and bugs got in there. So then this year it was like, okay, I'm waiting till June to plant. Mm-hmm. I am going to treat the soil ahead of time. And because I'm not planning on getting any fruit or vegetables out of this for over 12 weeks, I'm going to use an organic, while still necessarily not good, but I'm going to use an organic herbicide and pesticide to kill whatever tries to come in here, because I know I'm not going to eat this fruit anyways, at least the beginning stuff, because I've treated it now. And I put up a big fence around the thing so that no little critters could get in. So it's like each one of these attempts was an attempt. Like, if I look at it as each one of these as a failure, that's a completely different little thing that my mind puts a little stake in and goes failure 1, failure 2, failure 3, rather than attempt 1, attempt 2, attempt 3. And next year, attempt 4 will hopefully be even better. You might have a few more chickens die from raccoons, but you're going to get a way to keep them out eventually. And think about this as your proverbial chicken coop for everyone listening. Like, you're going to have some raccoons get into your chicken coop when you first try to put it all together.
Yeah. I think what's interesting is when I talked to Jenny's mom about like how bad like the coyotes are getting, how bad the raccoons are getting, and she says, "Oh, that's because Grandpa let someone come on his land and he would hunt the raccoons and the coyotes. That's why there weren't any here." I was like, "Oh, really?" So they're not hunting.
Buy a 22 and I'll be out next week.
Yeah. So that's why the raccoons have come back with a vengeance, because they're not being hunted anymore. I'm like, huh. And I was like, those bastards, man. I tell you what. So I decided to wage war on raccoons, and then they killed all the chickens. I'm like, man. And then I saw Eli's face when he held up a chicken head and was like, "What happened to my chickens, Dad?" I'm just like, man, I felt like such like a horrible parent in that moment when I'm seeing Eli's face. I'm just like, dude, I'm sorry. I'm gonna make this right. You know?
It's not funny, but it's kind of funny.
Dude, it's brutal. I'm telling you.
I am going to help you build the Fort Knox of chicken coops.
I have like the start, like the 3 walls built already, and I have like the chicken coops like there. Like I'm getting ready to like do all this stuff. I have tin and like all this like chicken wire, and I got all this stuff and 4x4s and like all this. I'm just like,
we're gonna build some spike traps.
Oh man,
some pressure traps.
You. And then I go to Orsolin's, and I'm like listening to all these old like farmers, and they're telling me what to do. I'm like, what do they know? I'm like, what do they know? I mean, come on. I'm a dude from Minneapolis. I can figure this out.
Yeah.
And what's funny is after I built the first like chicken wire dome, is like, one of the farmers came over that helped me build the fence. He's like, dude, that'll last for probably 3 months, and then they're going to kill all your chickens. Is what he said. He's like, that's just not going to last.
Yeah.
He's like, it just won't last. And I said, you won't even understand how they're even going to get in there, but they will. And you know what? He was right. Yeah. I was like, well, why am I not listening to all these people that have done it before? You know, and I'm just like, it's kind of like this podcast, you know, and kind of like some of the advice that I should have taken from people where it's like, hey, when you get older, this is probably going to happen to you. If you get hurt, you need to learn from your hurts. If you're going to do this, you got to learn from your mistakes. But we don't do that. You know, I can remember my parents said, you got to save your money because everything costs money.
Yeah.
When I graduated from high school, I moved out the day after I graduated. I moved out. You know what happened? I learned that I have to pay for car insurance. I have to pay for medical insurance. I have to put gas in my car. I had to put food on my table. And I learned that my parents are freaking geniuses with money because I wasn't. I thought I could like work at a fast food restaurant and I could make enough money to live on my own, and I couldn't.
Yeah, nowadays you can make 6 figures and barely afford to live on your own.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, even here, you know, you can go get a job. You can make $20, $25 an hour, and you can work 5-6 days a week, making all this money, and you're not getting anywhere.
Yeah.
You know, it's the same thing with putting that investment in yourself. You can like listen to all these podcasts, you can buy all these books, you can do all this stuff, but if you're not going to put the work in and be diligent about where you're going, then the chicken coop's not going to get built.
Yeah.
You know, because believe it or not, I know a lot of people that know how to build a lot of things, you know, and even Jenny knows how to build a chicken coop. And she's like, this isn't going to work. She even told me it's not going to work. I said, it's going to work. It's like, it's not going to work. And she told me, she's like, it's not going to work. This is what's going to happen. I was like, I'll just put more chicken wire around it. I'll just do this. I'll do that. It's like, what happened? They came in anyway.
Side note to this, but on topic still. I think this is why YouTube has been such a cool thing for us to have in our lifetime, is because you may not know how to make a chicken coop. I may not know how to make a chicken coop, but we have skills that would allow us to do one. And we could hop on YouTube and be like, just type in raccoon proof chicken coop. And there'd be like some guy who lives in middle of nowhere, Alabama, who's going to be like, well, let me tell you, boys, here's how you build yourself one damn good chicken coop.
Dude, can I tell you a quick story?
Let's hear it.
So
don't make it quick, though.
When I worked in the Dream Center, I had this thing where I wanted to spray bed liner on my truck because I thought it looked cool. Right?
Wait, on the whole truck?
Yeah, on Emily's truck, the one that she had.
Like, so instead of the paint?
Yeah.
Like a rhino liner?
Yeah. So I'm sitting there and I watched every single video that there was of all these people, that the do's and don'ts, like all this stuff on how to do this. So I'm like, okay. Read the directions. Okay. And I had this thing where I was going to roll it on. I wasn't going to spray it. I was going to roll it on because it had like the texture that I wanted, like all this stuff. I did everything. I did research, what I was going to do, like everything. So I got it. I did more research on what I was doing. And I skipped a step.
Was it an important step?
One very important step I did not. So I did this thing where you roll it in this like aluminum bag, and then you mix it, and then you pour it into the thing, and then you apply it.
Okay.
So the part that you have to mix it with is called the hardener.
Oh, it's like a resin.
Yeah. So what I didn't do is I did not mix it properly. Okay. Right. And then I applied it and it looked like crap. So Emily's like, if you make that truck red again, I will buy it from you. I'm like, okay. So I took it to Brad Geeting's shop, A1 Fabrication.
Shout out to A1.
Yep. And he had this hot pressure washer. And I don't know, you pour diesel in there, you start it. And I pressure washed all of the bed liner off the truck. And Brad Geating and his dad were sitting there, they're laughing at me. But it all came off. Do you know why? Because I didn't put hardener on it.
So that's one positive thing.
Yeah. And I didn't have the proper people to help me, but I researched it on YouTube, so I thought I could do it.
So you had all the knowledge. You just didn't execute it properly.
Yeah. The execution sucked bad.
Yeah. Hey, sometimes you can fix poor execution as simple as borrowing a hot pressure washer from a friend. And sometimes you really do F up to a point where, you know, you make some mistakes. Some people buy a lot of cryptocurrency or something dumb and then they lose it all. And it's just like, so, you know, like that's part of risk.
Yeah.
That's why risk is what it is. Like, and it's thrilling because there is a risk that I fail. There is a risk that this doesn't turn out the way I want it to, but it also could.
Yeah, that's true.
I really enjoy taking risks. Let me step back from that a little bit. I used to enjoy really taking risks.
Mm-hmm.
And after failing in so many different areas of my life, I became very risk averse. And I'm trying to find a healthy balance between living in a bubble and taking risks, because there is that calm lifestyle of I never do anything. I never step outside of my comfort zone. I never do anything outside of the norm. And I'm jumping off of the top of a building with a parachute, you know, like the you know, base jumpers, like super risky behavior.
Yeah.
Like there's a big difference between those things. And it's like, well, how can I have a little bit of that? Like, how can I go skydiving with a instructor, like kind of thing?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that is where we really typically find ourselves in our most happy and content place in life, is when we find that element of risk that it satisfies that sweet tooth in a way.
Yeah.
But we also have peace and comfort and habit and consistency in our life that allows us to take that managed risk.
Yeah.
The chicken thing, I think, is a little different. And I'm going to keep coming back to this chicken thing because, like, I really want to build a chicken coop. I just can't do it here. I could do it here, but I'd piss off some neighbors.
Yeah.
I keep coming back to it because I keep thinking about it.
Yeah, because I'm going to really like take my time and make sure that this thing is done right, you know, and make sure it's good, because I'm just like, I don't want to see my son holding up a chicken head and be like,
that's why I was saying it's different.
And like they all ran away.
It's one thing if it's just you and Jenny and your daughters, but having Eli around, and that you probably replay that look on his face every time you think about those chickens.
Mm-hmm.
And that completely changes the context of everything, because there's now this, like, that look on your son's face.
Mm-hmm.
I can never see that look again kind of thing.
Yeah.
There's certain things that do that to us. It's like light bulb moments in our life where it's like, it is permanently ingrained into who you are as a person now, that will completely shape and change the way that you do things. Cause it's like, I can't let my son see dead chickens again.
Yeah. I was like, this cannot happen. This cannot happen. So I think it's interesting. You're saying about risk. There's a quote from Janis Joplin. I think this happened. She said this after a concert, and then I think she OD'd like shortly after that, but she said,
she might have taken a little too much risk.
Maybe. And she said this, and I was like, if you don't realize that you're risking something, you're risking more than you think. Was her quote, you know? And I was like, I was thinking about that, and You know, I think sometimes when we are like putting ourselves together or like reaching out for help or, you know, because when you are like going after stuff and you're trying to be better, 9 times out of 10, you're not going to risk as much because, you know, you got hurt in your life. You know, people are talking negative about you and like all this stuff. So you're not pushing as hard as you think you would.
Yeah.
You know, so if you're not pushing as hard as you think you would, are you risking enough?
Yeah. I mean, and to kind of expand on that a little bit, if you don't know what the risk is, you are the risk. It's like, if you don't have something that you're risking, then you're risking your entire life. You're risking, no one wants to look back at their life on their deathbed and go, man, I really should have watched that last season of blankety blank show.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, I should have watched Disappeared more often.
Yeah. But at the end of the day, in the moment, it seems like I should watch more Disappeared. Like I need to keep up on this. And I don't say that to pick on you in any way. It's just, that's the example you gave. So we're going to run with it. But it's like this idea that we often are not willing to take a risk, and we risk losing our life to nothing, like living a life that's purposeless and meaningless. That's the bigger risk, obviously.
Yeah.
But we don't see it in the moment, because in the moment it's like, well, what else am I going to do with my time?
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's interesting. You mentioned something about social media, and I think it's interesting. I think that we don't practice the things that make us better because of failing.
Yeah.
And I think that's interesting because the more we fail, the more, you know, we realize, okay, we need to push it a little bit more. We need to push it a little bit more. And I think if we did that and we applied that to like our boundaries, and we applied that to like not giving a crap what other people feel about us and their opinions, then maybe we would live a life that is more peaceful, and we would appreciate ourselves more. You know, it's kind of like when Stan said to me, he's like, when are you going to respect yourself enough and start saying no? I'm like Stan, what are you talking about? He's like, either you're going to be popular or you're going to get respect. You're not going to get both. I was like, okay, I guess I have to start practicing.
Yeah.
And when I heard people, it's like, when you're okay with failing, you're going to start growing.
Yeah.
I was like, okay. But we don't realize that in the moment. All we can see is we're afraid to fail. You know, it's the same thing you said. Well, what if you do the chicken coop and this happens?
Yeah. What if land is a tough place to live?
Yeah.
You know, what if I just drop dead next 10 seconds? Could happen. Could also not happen. Chances of it happening pretty slim. We're already 5 seconds into this and I'm still running pretty strong, but still could happen. We're good. We're out of the clear. It's just like, but we get so caught up in this what if, this possibility of what could happen, that it prevents us from making any action and making any progress. And that's why I was saying the thing about failure versus attempt. It's something I kind of stole from David Goggins, is this idea that, like, if we look at things as binary, as a zero-sum game of there's either a win or a loss. It's a win or a loss. It's a success or it's a failure. Then we're automatically drawing this distinction within our brain that my only options are to get it right or to fail, rather than to get it right or to not get it quite right.
Right.
And it's okay. Like, yeah, the consequences of some things, like dead chickens, is worse than other things, you know, like stubbing your toe or something. It sucks. But at the end of the day, everything that you learned about that first chicken coop is going to completely shape and redirect how you're going to handle it the second time. And you're going to come in hot and strong on this next one. And yeah, right now, that image of your son's face is still hanging over this thing. That last time that you said, this is my last drink, that last time that you said, this is the last time that I lose my temper with my kids, or this or that, or whatever, whatever it is that you're working on, it's like, you're still giving yourself this binary of success or failure, rather than I'm just trying to get better, and I'm attempting to get better each day. Some things you don't have that ability. Some things it's really only hey, I either do this right or I don't do it at all. But a lot of the time it's like, what steps can I take to just get better at this tomorrow? Better today than I was yesterday, almost.
I think that's pretty interesting. I was, about what you said, because what if land is pretty hard, and, what if you fail, but what if you succeed? And, in the podcast we did with you, we did the fear of failure versus the fear of success. And you said something about being an imposter.
Yeah.
Are you being an imposter right now? A lot of things that I do, I take from like other people and I try to apply it to myself, and I'm looking at like, all these people that have all these really good nonprofits. And I'm like, how can I duplicate that? Well, if I don't do what they did, I'm not going to have what they have,
That's a tough thing to think.
Yeah. So, but I also don't live in a big city. I don't live like so I need to do things differently. Right. So the nonprofit that we have, it's called Veterans Call for Fire. We're doing something that, most nonprofits in the country don't do. And that is to embrace the entire family, like the kids, the wife, the veteran, because they're all infected. They're all affected by the guy going to war.
Yeah.
They're all affected by the guy coming home and not being the same father, same husband, and they're struggling. The whole family is struggling. And what I found to be different was you have to do this as a family if you're going to get better. How do I know that? Is because I didn't get better for myself all the way until I knew my kids were affected, until my wife was affected. Because we do that to ourselves. There's some stuff that we'll do for our kids and our wife that we won't do for ourselves. And when I talk to veterans have all these resources. Who doesn't have the resource? The spouse and the kids. Do you know why that is? Because they didn't serve. But they're suffering.
Yeah.
And when we finally came to a place where Emily wasn't moving anymore, Emily went to 15 different schools in 7 years.
Jesus.
So how are you going to have roots and grow and be normal like everybody else when you're constantly moving? And that's the same thing as the marriage in the military. Jenny was a single mom on 1, 2, 3, 4, probably 5 or 6 different occasions. Single mom. And I would come home and I try to be super dad and do all this stuff.
Run yourself ragged, trying to make up for it.
Yeah, and try to make up for it. But you know what? She didn't need that. She was used to being super mom, independent. Well, guess what? We miss anniversaries, miss all this stuff because that's what I signed up for, and that's okay. But now that we're going forward and I was diagnosed with PTSD and all this other stuff, guess who gets it? the entire family gets it. And the entire family makes excuses because of what dad had to do. So how does the entire family heal when there's no resources?
Yeah.
That's what it makes our nonprofit differently here, because all these nonprofits here, number one, I don't like because no one talks to each other. Right? I don't understand it. I don't understand why there are like 50 veteran nonprofits in the state of Missouri. No one talks to each other. I don't understand it. You know, I reached out to all these other people and they know about each other, but no one talks to each other. Why? I don't know.
Probably because they view each other as some sort of competition. It's that scarcity mentality. There's only so many veterans and the pool's only so big. So if we talk to these people, well, what if our veterans go over to them and stop donating money to our nonprofit?
Well, that's true. But the thing is what's at stake.
Exactly.
Is the veteran, is PTSD, veteran suicide, the family not getting better.
Yep.
And I'm just like, I go to all these places and it's like, yeah, heard from here. And they're like, yeah, we don't do that. This is what we do. I was like, well, what about the veteran? He's like, they can come here and we can help them. I was like, well, you don't do that. You are hunting and fishing. You're not counseling. I was like, so if a veteran needs counseling, where are you going to send them? Well, that's on the veteran. Or a counseling place is like, well, this person needs like this extra thing. They need physical therapy. Well, there's already a nonprofit that does physical fitness and therapy. How come you don't talk to them? It's like, well, that's on the veteran. I'm just like, I don't understand. Like,
and you would like to see it all be brought together.
Yeah.
It sounds like. Yeah, I genuinely think that stuff like that comes from a place of scarcity. It's that scarcity mentality. It's like that there's not enough to go around. So it's either that or it's ignorance or it's naivety. Like if I just ignore all these other things, then they're not happening. Or it's like, oh, well, we didn't think that they needed that naive thing. Or it's that there's this genuine thought that, well, if they go over to this place, then they're not going to come back. And it's like, because there's more interest in what I say I did for these veterans rather than the actual progress of the veteran. If I can say I helped 500 veterans last year, it looks better than, well, I helped 250, but I sent 700 to other places to get the help that they needed. So I helped 900, but it's like, well, only 250 signed up with my organization of that, 900 total people that I saw.
Yeah.
And it sucks. It sucks. And I'm sure that, and I'm using your example, but like, that's how it is in a lot of other industries. Like, for example, if I help people lose weight, but I don't help people gain muscle, well, if someone asks me like, hey, can you help me with this? I tell them I can't do that, but I can try to point you towards some stuff that can. And like, you don't need to spend money on this, or just sign up for this guy's program. It's like $8 a month and save some money. Like, it's just outside of what I want to specifically do. But there's a lot of people where it's like, no, I don't do that. And I'm not going to tell you anything because I don't want to give business to somebody else.
Yeah.
That's it. I find that to be appalling, not from like a moral superiority standpoint, but it's like, well, are you really in this to help people, or are you only in this for money? Are you only in this for notoriety?
Right.
And that's what I see a lot in the fitness industry. And I'm sure in the world of veterans stuff, and that sounds terrible to just say veterans stuff, but it's like, there's so many different aspects of this, but in that realm of things, like, there's probably people with pretty similar mentalities that, well, I can't give business to these people because that's less business for me.
Right.
All the while, the only people that are suffering are the veterans and their families.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So when you're doing something that's specific to you, you can follow someone else's model of like healing or model of fitness, but
Yeah.
that may not be for you. Like right now, I'm still trying to like figure out like how to go about doing this stuff. How, I don't know. It's just really, sometimes it's frustrating and I beat myself up because I'm not like further ahead, but we haven't even had a nonprofit for a month. And, I'm just like, man, I guess when you're finally successful, kind of like the podcast you're doing, the Untitled Podcast, I'm sure like if you had started out and all of a sudden, like after a month, you had 1 million followers and you're like, yeah, man, this is amazing. What a journey. Or if it's like it is now, it's like, you finally had like 1 or 2 subscribers, now you're like in the 20s, after a month, you're going to appreciate it a lot more like in a year from now when you have like 1,000 subscribers and, you're further along. It's like you have like, I don't know, maybe 70,000 people like watching every week. You're like, yeah, I'm learning so much from Zach and fitness and like how to have a healthy mindset. If it ballooned overnight, I don't think I would have like the appreciation until you put in the hard work. And the thing is when you put yourself together, people don't see the hard work that you're putting in. People don't see like the struggle of you waking up and be like, man, my life sucks right now, but I need to do it anyway. Mm. People don't see like you crossing what they see is they see you crossing the finish line and they're like, oh man, Zach is great. Look, he's natural. He's a natural like fitness guy. He's natural at the podcast, but they didn't see you like agonizing on how to get better, talking through things, problem solving on how to get a better podcast. They didn't see you finally figure out how to make the best podcast studio. They didn't see you like trying to have, you're sitting there with Megan and you're like, Megan, I just don't know what, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
They didn't see you have conversations with Phil Sofield and Josh Stobart about what is the best microphone to use. And you've had this conversation for like 2 or 3 months. They didn't see you like doing all this stuff of like how to have a successful podcast and how to like, you went to all these other people and you had this diagram when we sat down for coffee about how this all works together. They didn't see that. They saw you crossing the finish line. It's like all these little victories that you had that they don't see. It's like a little piece of paper. Really thin, doesn't mean a lot. But after a while, those pieces of paper, they stack up. Keep on stacking. Next thing you know, your stack is like this. What is it like? We talked before. When you're really successful, it took like 10,000 hours and you're like the master of your craft.
Yeah. 10,000 hour rule.
Yeah. And then when people observe you, what do they observe? They observe like the finished product. They observe like you being successful. They really didn't observe like the struggle. They didn't observe you like going to group and be like, man, my life sucks. Why the hell did I move to Troy, Missouri? Same thing here. They didn't see me.
How the hell with an F-U-C-K in front of it?
Yeah. So and when people finally went to group, right? When group was like successful, we averaged like 30, 40, 50 people at group. They did not see me and John Fisher sitting in an empty like room for 6 months.
Yeah.
They didn't see that. They saw, oh man, you guys have a great group. Look at what you guys did. So
everyone wants to be at the mountaintop, but hardly anyone wants to ride the switchbacks with you. And I think that just hearing you talk about this stuff today has really given me a completely different perspective on why the family is so important to you, because that's what hits close to home for you. Like your personal issues as a veteran were your personal issues, but I guess we'll call it the trickle down economics of that is that each one of your family members was affected in their own way. And that kind of sparked the light bulb for you of it's much bigger than the veteran. Yes, the veteran is very, very important. And we are extremely blessed that people like you and millions of other men and women all over this country are willing to, whether they see wartime or not, you signed a piece of paper that said, I would give my life to protect families that I have never met before to keep this train on the rails. And that sacrifice that you make when you sign that piece of paper affects those people that you love the most. And that is a crazy thought to think that, like, there are so many, you said 50 plus veteran nonprofits in the state of Missouri, yet none of them can really seem to work together. I'm sure there are a few. So I hate to speak in absolutes like that. I'm sure there's a few in the state of Missouri that probably find ways to work together, and that's awesome. But it's like, if everyone is so focused on their problem that they want to solve being the most important, then none of them actually get to the real issue, which is the family. Like, a huge, and this isn't just in veteran families, and not to go off tangent too much, but it's like the nuclear family is under attack in our world today. It's like you don't see this typical like family structure that you used to see when people were your age. And like, I'm sure that even before that, like if you go back to the early 1800s, or not the early 1800s, like the early 1900s, the divorce rate was like 3%. And then as we entered into the 60s, it crossed into that 10 to 15% range, and into the 90s at 20 to 25% range. And now it's well over 50% of marriages end in divorce. And it's like, so there's this breakdown of the nuclear family. And while the problem is between mom and dad or husband and wife, the kids are also affected. While dad's the one who goes off to war for 18 months, mom's got to be super mom, and kids have no dad. And all the while in the back of everyone's head is Mike may not come home. And I have to be willing to accept that when he leaves. And you want to tell me that that has no effect on the family? Get the hell out of here. So like, I think it's a beautiful thing what you guys are doing with this nonprofit. And I'm extremely blessed to just be able to sit here and have conversations with you, because it's eye-opening to someone like me who didn't serve, but also struggles with a lot of things similar to veterans because of decisions that I've made in my own life that were within my control, which is even more effed up, because it's like, as someone in the armed services, you sign a piece of paper, and from that point forward, you are property of the United States, and you are hardly in control of your decisions at all. They say jump and you say how high. That's like the whole thing. And it's like, I wake up and it's like Totino's pizza rolls.
Yeah. So in the Army, we have UCMJ.
What does that stand for? For Uniform
Code of Military Justice, right? So there's different.
Is that different than like JAG?
It's the same thing, pretty much. And you can get in trouble for a lot of different things. So when when I was in Germany, I got a sunburn, like a really bad sunburn. I went to Spain, like this is back in the days where I was like a really bad alcoholic, and my face is like blistering. My cheeks are blistering because of the sunburn.
You did not get punished for this.
I did.
As if the sunburn wasn't punishment enough.
Yeah. So I'm sitting there and
kicked while you're down.
So they punished me because my life was out of control, first of all. So they wanted to like hone in the reins a little bit. So they gave me a punishment because I was abusing government property because I got a sunburn. Yeah.
You being the property.
Yeah. And I got sunburn like really bad.
You hear that, people? You think anything you got going in your life is bad. Just remember, you are not property of the federal government.
Yeah. So they gave me 30 days restriction and 30 days extra duty. And I was like pulling weeds, like all this other stuff in the sun. And someone gave me a block of instruction about how to put on sunscreen. And it was like death by PowerPoint too, by the way. It was brutal. So
It's like a Bart Simpson moment. I will always wear sunscreen when I go outside.
Yeah.
Writing it on a chalkboard.
Yeah. But that also taught me how to be creative as a leader. So when I was in Fort Stewart, I had this soldier that he shoplifted from the shopette. And the shopette is like, man, they got cameras everywhere. They're going to catch you. And he stole a watch, and I got a call. It's like, hey, your soldier stole a watch, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, oh, man. So I went to go pick him up. This is my first soldier I've ever had. So I was like, dude, I was like, what are you thinking? He's like, well, I was thinking I wanted this watch, so I took it. I'm like, okay. He's like, what are you going to do? I said, I'm going to get pretty creative to make sure that you never steal anything again. He's like, okay. Can you guess the punishment that I gave him?
I don't want to ruin it by making a bad guess.
I mean, if you made a guess, I guarantee this is worse than your guess.
Well, I just mean, I don't want it to just be an extremely underwhelming guess that I'm like, I don't know, you taped a watch to his forehead or something. I don't know. I'm just thinking to myself, like, I've met military people. Y'all are effed up. Like,
so this was his punishment.
I've got dark humor. You guys make me look average.
Yeah. So this was his punishment. I made him have his dress uniform on, head to toe, and he had to carry a sign that says, I am a thief. I love stealing watches. In front of the PX.
Oh.
And I said, you have to sit here all day. All day. And this was a dad, married, all this stuff. And guess who I got a call from? I got a call from the general of the post saying, why did you do this? He called me on the carpet. This was a week before 9/11. Called me on the carpet and says, I don't know if you're fit to be a leader. I said, okay, sir. I may not fit to be a leader, but I guarantee he's not going to steal a watch again. And then 9/11 happens, like, I can't afford to let you go. I'm like, okay.
Yeah, that's brutal.
Yeah.
That's some Hester Prynne's Scarlet Letter stuff right there.
Yeah. So if any of my kids are watching you steal a watch, you're going to be dressed head to toe right in front of Walmart. I'm just kidding. I wouldn't do that to my kids.
Yeah. They'd just let them go at Walmart.
Yeah.
Left under 1,000. Yeah, get out of here.
Yeah.
What do you got there? Some donuts? I've seen people at Walmart just like grab food, open it up, eat it, and just leave it places in the store, like while I'm grocery shopping or something. And I'll see someone like walk by the front where they have like little chicken nuggets and stuff like in the little warm trays, and they'll just like grab them and start eating them while they're walking. Like, you know, you walk into formerly Orscheln, but now Bumgar's. They've got that little popcorn machine in there. Maybe it's Rural King's got the popcorn. Mm-hmm. You can grab yourself a little bag of popcorn while you're walking around. Mm-hmm. And people just do that with like the popcorn chicken at Walmart. Yeah, so like at the end of the day, let's go back to the failure thing for a second. Mm-hmm. If the people that you were a CO over knew that the punishment for what they were going to do was, hey, if you steal, I'm going to make you stand outside of the place that you stole from in your dress uniform, holding a sign saying what you stole. Do you think it would prevent people from stealing, knowing that that's that punishment?
I don't think so. I'll tell you this.
Or do you think they would just try to get away with it better?
Well, after I had this one soldier, I went to PLDC. That's the Primary Leadership Development course, and I went there and I met some, people who were had some creative punishments and like all this stuff and like how to be a leader. I will tell you this: I had a goal that I wanted to be the most strict person as I could be. And I had the most like IG calls. Like, I was like, hey, this guy is too hard or whatever. And they regretted every time I showed up, like every single time. And until I had this one kid who was a Christian. And when was this? So this was 2002. It was like right after I met Jenny. This kid came up to me and says, you know what? I said, I don't know what your deal is, but I'm going to pray for you. I was kind of like looking at him like, what are you talking about? It's like, if you were a Christian, you wouldn't be acting like this. And I was like, that kind of really took me back. And then when I finally got out of the military and I was a children's pastor, this kid messaged me. He's like, hey, I said, I've been praying for you now for 6 years. What are you up to? And I was a children's pastor at the time. And I was like, damn, look at all these like ways I could have impacted people with my faith, with like how I could have been a better leader, how I could have been a different person. Because when you're in the military, you want to be hard. You want to be like the leader. You want to do all this other stuff.
Yeah.
And I wasn't that person. I was the biggest a-hole that I could possibly be because that's who I thought I needed to be. Instead of being an authentic person, like leading by example. I led by example, all right.
Yeah.
But not the good example. Until I like got out of the military, I was trying to be a good father, and I was a children's pastor. I was like, damn, man, why the hell does this kid pray for me for 6 years?
Yeah, quit praying for people.
I'm just like, golly, man. I'm like, come on. And that really like puts the whole thing like into a dynamic of like, how are you living your life? Because when I put my boots on, I transformed into a different person. Take my boots off, I was a different person at home. I wasn't the same person. So when you have to like be two different personalities, it's exhausting. And I think we do that all the time. We're two different personalities. We're the personality that is people pleasing, and we're the personality that is like, we suffocate sometimes and we don't let out, which is unfortunate.
Yeah. And I think some part of it is like who we want to be versus who we think we should be kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
I talk about, and I know me and you have talked about this, that kind of inner duality of human beings. And it's like, I have this part of me that has a desire to wake up every morning and work out and do all this. And then I have my inner bitch, and my inner bitch is like, you don't need to start today. You don't need to do this. You don't need to do that. And everyone's inner bitch speaks to him a little differently. And sometimes it's, you need to be the toughest son of a bitch anyone's ever seen. And that's your inner bitch, because it's like, it's trying to put on this rough exterior for you, because in all reality, it's just a little softy. And it's like this, we constantly fight this, who we ought to be versus who we want to be. And finding a way to kind of combine those two things into one person of like, hey, I can can be a work in progress while also kind of having some downtime and having some of this and having some of that. It's like you can still be strict and nice, or you can be a jerk.
Yeah.
You know, you can finding a way to do that, like kind of combine that dualism into what you are. Like that's what it's all about.
Right.
That's this whole journey in life is trying to figure out. And it goes back to the beginning. It's like, is who I am more important to me than who I am to mom? Is who I am to me, is this someone that I would want to wake up and continue to be every single day? And if it's not, well, what are you doing to change it? And if you're not doing anything, if you're not building the chicken coop, why? Like, that's what it comes back to. That's why I ask people questions and try to get to these things. And I ask those things like the whys, the why, the why. Because the why is more important than the how. There's a great book called Man's Search for Meaning. And I would suggest people read it. But he talks about this, and it's a very famous quote, but it's actually from, I believe it's from Nietzsche. No, he quotes something else from Nietzsche. In the book Man's Search for Meaning, he says, those who have a why can survive almost anyhow. If you have a true reason, if you are a true believer in the reason why you are doing what you're doing, you're going to be able to make it through any of those ups and downs, those peaks and valleys, those highs, those lows. Because the reason why you're doing it in the first place means way more to you than whatever you're going through. Because you don't want to see that look on Eli's face again, you're going to build one hell of a chicken coop. Because you want to be there for your kids, you're going to stop eating fast food all the time so that you can see them graduate high school and hopefully go to their wedding. And if you're a father and you have a daughter, dance with your daughter. And if you're a mom, a woman and you have a son and you want to dance with your son, and you want to see your grandkids then, and then you want to see your great grandkids, and that legacy factor. Like, and if you don't have those desires, it's fine. But it's like, there is a why that drives people, that hire something to aim at. And it's like, if you don't have that, you probably do, and you don't know what it is. And then that kind of draws back on that Janis Joplin thing of, if you don't know what you're risking, then you're risking too much.
Yeah.
If you don't know what your why is, then you're wasting your life.
Yep. You know, it's interesting. I think one of the most impactful things that I've ever heard anybody ever say was Kobe Bryant's last thing that he said before he passed away. His last public statement that he said. He said, "Human beings make the worst mistake possible, thinking that there's enough time." And he died in the helicopter crash that day.
No way. Was that really one of the things that he said?
Yeah.
That's almost too eerie.
I know, but you think about it.
Yeah.
Think about, like, I moved here almost 10 years ago. And how much time I wasted because I hated Troy, Missouri. And there's still a part of me that
I've got
doesn't.
time to waste, by the way.
Well, I started eating crappy food because,
Still eating crappy food.
Oh yeah, in Troy, Missouri, there's just fast food, really. There's not a lot of...
Yeah, and fast food places that like to charge you more and tell you they're not fast food because they don't have a drive-through.
Yeah. And, I ballooned up to 253 pounds, more than I've ever weighed in my entire life. And I could barely walk fast with my wife, could barely do anything like this until I decided I needed to get in shape and I need to start hiking. And then I overdid it, of course. But the thing is if you're trying to improve yourself, you're trying to get to a place where you need to go and you need to figure out your why. You need to do all this stuff. What are you waiting for? What are you waiting for? You're not getting any younger. This is the youngest I will ever be. This is the youngest you'll ever be.
Yeah.
We'll look back at this podcast, number 5, I think.
Yeah.
Or we will...
Number 5 on Wednesday, September 8th.
Or we will... Our first podcast, Zach did, was, I think, at the beginning of June, which we'll probably end up putting out, I'm sure.
Maybe one day. The audio quality is pretty bad on them.
Yeah, but the thing is, that was our first one.
Yeah.
Did we know what we were doing? No. Did we know? We wanted to see if we had chemistry. We wanted to see if we could talk like we're talking right now.
Yeah.
But the thing is if we would have waited, we wouldn't be where we are right now.
Yeah, that's true.
If I didn't take Zach out to that initial coffee thing, it's like, hey man, I think we can do a podcast about the book. What do you think? You know?
Yeah.
If we didn't have that initial meeting, we probably would never have been here. You know?
Yeah.
The point is you have to start somewhere. You have to start.
Yeah, like why are you robbing yourself of it ahead of time? It's like you're not even giving yourself the opportunity. And like I'm not saying this as somebody who's figured it out. Like something that I struggle with, but something that I'm working on. Because like I'm tired of it. I'm tired of not giving myself the opportunity to succeed.
Mm-hmm.
And there are too many people out there that feel the same way.
Mm-hmm.
And the best encouragement that I can give you is someone who was tired of trying and failing is that you kind of have to burn the boat.
Mm-hmm.
You have to decide that I don't find any worth and value in maintaining this life anymore. I want more than maintenance. Mm-hmm. My friend's Phil, and he's going to be on the Untitled podcast in a couple of weeks to talk about trust. He owns a company called GBB Consulting, Good, Better, or Best Consulting. And his whole idea is like, why are people settling for just okay? Like, think about, or fine, good enough.
Mm-hmm.
Why? Like, why do we settle for that? And he really dwelled on that question and thought like, because they don't understand how much more they could have. Or they don't believe that they could actually have more. So it's this idea that it's like, how much are you robbing yourself of by just settling for it's good enough, it's fine?
Mm-hmm.
Why would you want to look back at your life and be like, it was good enough?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it can always be better, but like good enough?
Mm-hmm.
That's not the way I ever want to describe anything about my life. It's just, it's good enough. But far too often I find myself in that situation.
You know, what's funny is that was the excuse for me not to have Rocky.
What, because you were good enough?
Mm-hmm.
Or you were okay?
I was okay. I was good enough. And then Jenny came to me and said, yeah, but you can be better.
You could be great.
Yeah. I said, you know, if you can be great, I said, why wouldn't you go for it? And then I have to play fetch for 40 minutes a day.
There's probably a lot of veterans out there that are settling for an okay life right now.
Yeah. And there's a lot of veterans that don't go to the VA because they think they're robbing other veterans. That's why they don't put claims in.
That one pisses me off.
Yeah. That's why they don't put claims in. That's why they don't get help. I said, because that's why I didn't do it for a long time either, if I'm going to be completely honest. I got out of the military and they gave me 94.4%. 0.1%, I would have been 100% because they always go up. And I didn't go. Do you know why? Because I thought that I was robbing someone else.
So this is not the view, obviously, of America. But let me tell you, veterans out there who are listening to this, the perspective of someone who is beyond grateful for your sacrifice. we pay, and I don't mean we, professional athletes are paid millions upon millions of dollars a year to entertain us.
Mm-hmm.
Yet the people that protect us are given kibbles and bits in our reality. When you're telling me that our best operatives, our special operators are, yeah, they make six figures after bonuses and hazard pays and things like that. But like, you deserve medical coverage for the rest of your life. Yeah. Are there people scamming the system? Absolutely. But like, please go get your VA stuff. Please use your GI Bill. Please go get service connected. Please file that claim for your tinnitus and your PTSD and your exposure to things that in all reality, 10-year-old you in fourth grade did not expect that to be the outcome of your life.
Mm-hmm.
And to someone like me who I'm not trying to grandstand here. I'm saying this from a genuine place because I have met too many people that when I find out they serve and my wife works for the VA and I will ask them, are you service connected? And they'll say no. And I'll be like, well, why aren't you service connected? And they'll come up with anything is just an excuse.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's like, you deserve it. You deserve it. Mm-hmm. You were willing to risk your life. You deserve it. That good enough for me. Unless you're in the chair force.
Yeah. Hey, I've met some.
Just kidding.
I've met some pretty tough people, that were in the Air Force. I think that one branch that people like really get a knock is from the Coast Guard.
Also badasses.
Yeah. And I'm going to tell you, like,
all of you guys are badasses.
Well,
just in your own different ways.
I'm going to say, like, people that voluntarily go out in hurricanes or the Barents Sea to like save people
or track down submarines.
Yeah.
Full of cocaine.
I'm like, what in the world, man? I mean, what the heck?
Yeah. It just blows my mind that like FBI agents and CIA operatives make the money that they make and their risk may seem high, like espionage and stuff like that and like what they're doing. But it's like, you don't have people firing RPGs at you. And they're not James Bond. Like that's not what's really going on in these situations. They're not secret agent mans.
Yeah.
Please go get service connected. One, it will continue to provide my wife with a job because she wants to make sure you guys are all heard and taken care of. But also, like, if my tax money is going to go to anything, I'd rather it line your pockets than those idiots in Washington and their special interests.
Yeah, no kidding.
So that's all I got to say about that before I get too much onto this politics thing. Maybe go listen to some Oliver Anthony.
Oh, man. Come on.
What did you think about that song?
I don't know, man. It's
that I feel like that hit so close to home for so many Americans, that Richmond, north of Richmond song that's gone viral recently.
Mm-hmm.
Impressive. I know we were talking about earlier, like the idea of would you rather wake up and have 1 million subscribers overnight? That guy legit was like an overnight success.
Yeah.
And we only see the overnight success part, not the 10 years of working on it before.
Yeah. I was asking my daughter, what's the fastest way like my podcast can go viral? You know what she said to me? It's like, Dad, like, you remember when you were little? I'm like, yeah, I remember when you did all those crazy things. I was like, yeah. I said, you need to do one of them. I said, everybody will know what your podcast is. Everybody. I'm like, what do you mean? She's like, why don't you make another homemade parachute and jump off the roof?
There you go.
I said, I guarantee I will post it and all my friends will share it. And next thing you know, you'll be an overnight sensation. I was like, yeah, but what if I like break both my legs? I said, then you'll heal and you'll have a successful podcast and people will listen to you. I'm like, yeah, I think I don't want, I don't really want to live my younger years when
Don't jump off the roof, please.
Yeah. I don't think I want to make another homemade parachute.
I
Thank
don't
you.
need you crutching down to the basement, falling down my stairs.
Yeah.
Well, this has been a lot different, and I've enjoyed it. I've enjoyed the free talk. But like I'm also looking forward to talking about number 5 next week.
Number 5 is a slobber knocker too.
Yeah.
Oof.
I was about to say I'm looking forward to it, but not looking forward to it. Man, 4 last week was tough. Look, tough is good though. Like tough is good. There's only so much feel good that you can take and actually have value. So the best things worth having in life are worth earning and working for. And 5 is we're gonna dig deep on that one.
All right.
I'm gonna have to prepare myself. Go to my mental dojo on that.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks for having me today. I appreciate it.
Thank you for coming, camera people. There's no one behind the camera, but for all those people that are watching this being filmed, thank you. People watching this on your phone, on the toilet, wherever you're at.